Hello, good morning once again, and welcome along to Good Morning Uganda Extra. I'm Jerome Paul Sonko, and it's time for us to have conversations that are rather sensitive, but pretty much something that society needs to uphold in regards to human rights and in regards to gender equality in the country. A conversation that has been here for ages, but the bigger picture that we want to paint for you this morning is how we can uphold these particular rights and end gender-based violence, which as well includes sexual violence. And this kind of conversation that we're going to be having this morning, we are analyzing the good practices in disposal of sexual gender-based violence, those particular cases that we've been having in Uganda. A conversation cannot go without having other people to share opinions. This morning in studio, I do have three elegant ladies that are joining me to have more of this particular conversation, whereby you will definitely feel the impact of whatever they will have to put aside this morning. Now, at my immediate left, I do have Samali Wakoli, who is the Assistant Director of Public Prosecutions, Head of Department, Gender, Children and Sexual Offences in the Office of the Director of Public Prosecutions of Uganda. A very good morning, ma'am, and many thanks for joining us.
Good morning to you, Mr. Sonko, and good morning to all our dear listeners. We are happy to be here at UBC.
And the pleasure is ours hosting you this morning. And next to her is Detective Senior Superintendent of Police, Rose Asimwe. She is the head of Sexual, Gender and Children-Related Offences Department for the Criminal Investigation Directorate at the Uganda Police. A very good morning, ma'am, and many thanks for joining us.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you for hosting us.
And at my extreme left, that means that one is also close to Detective Senior Superintendent Rosa Simwe. That is none other than Miss Rose Archer. Now, Miss Rose Archer serves as the Senior Probation and Welfare Officer, Ministry of Gender, Labour and Social Development. A very good morning, and many thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Mr. Sonko. Good morning, our viewers. We are happy to be here today.
And well, and that is where we are going to be kicking off our conversations and our discussions in the quest of seeking for justice in various departments in the country. This time around, we're talking matters sexual, gender and gender-based violence in the sexual and gender-based violence in Uganda. The cases, but also trying to analyze the good practices in the disposal of these particular cases as well. And of which I'll definitely kick off with Ms. Samali Wankoli. When you look at the underlying success story of the SGBV special sessions that have been funded by the UNFPA, what are some of those that you can highlight for the Ugandans this morning?
I want to thank you all and for coming to listen to us. As the Office of the Director of Public Prosecutions, we are a government office that is established under Article 120 of the 1995 Constitution. And our vision is to have a crime-free society.
Okay.
In having a crime-free society, our mandate is to direct police to do investigations, but then also to prosecute all criminal cases in the country. And in doing so, we have been working with court, judiciary, where all our cases are reported, but we fall under the governance and security program of Uganda. And as a country, we have commitments that we are supposed to fulfill with the rest of the world, and one of our obligations is to ensure that we put in interventions that are going to ensure that we protect women and girls, and also to ensure that we have or we reduce the rates of SGBV in our country, and then also to ensure that we put in measures that are going to have us to fast track and ensure that cases are heard and disposed of. So with the support that we have received from UNFPA, which we are totally grateful for, we have been able to do quite a number of things that have helped us to fulfill our mandate as an office, and then also to fulfill our obligations as a country. And in this, we have been able to have quick and affordable justice for our victims of crime. we ensure that the cases are heard, they are fast-tracked, and then they are concluded within the shortest time possible. And what does this mean? It means that a person who has reported a case to court is able to see the processes go through and the case is concluded on time. You will be surprised, but most of the cases that we handle, over 70% in any session that we handle at the court, at the High Court, include cases of sexual and gender-based violence. And in these we have defilements, we have cases of rape, we have cases involving murder as a result of home quarrels, and we have defilement of children of all categories, and the vast majority of our victims are children. So it helps us to ensure that our children are growing up in a safe environment where they are protected. It also has helped us to be key in the protection of fundamental human rights, because many of the offenses I've talked about touch the aspect of human rights and the protection of life of people. If somebody dies, that's a right to life. If somebody has been defiled, that's a right, that's a right not to be treated in a cruel and inhuman way. And then also when they come to court, they're also not supposed to face further challenges when they come to access justice. So it helps us to focus on a human rights-based approach, and then also helps us to ensure that we have perpetrator accountability. When we started off these sessions, our convictions rate for cases of this category was very low, and as we talk now, we are at 80%
of
convictions,
those cases.
yes, that are concluded in convictions, and that means that we are moving towards also achieving our goal of having a crime-free society.
Yes.
And it has also led to reduction also of case backlog, because in every session we can have like about 13 sessions, and in each session we are disposing of over 55 cases. So if you do 55, you will see that at the end of every activity we are looking at over 750 cases, and through the years, as we started off in 2018, we have been able to dispose of over 2,000 cases. And that helps us to reduce on the kind of work, which means that now once a case is reported, it will not take so many years before it is heard and disposed of. So to us, it is a welcome idea that has helped us to work through, to support our victims, to protect them, and to make sure that we learn. Because in the handling of sessions, we've also been doing monitoring and evaluation. So when you monitor how you're doing your work, you pick lessons. And then from the lessons, you do better. For example, in the first sessions that we handled, we fixed them during school time. And most of our victims who are children are school-going children. So we would have a challenge where children have to be picked from school to come to court and testify. In the next phase, we fixed sessions during holidays such that we can have our children come to testify. We have also been engaging a lot with the media. Every time a child would come, sometimes they would come in their uniform. Then the media now would cover their faces and ensure that we also have responsible reporting. We also ensure that we have their cases handled properly. But then also as ODPP, we also have other emergency clothes that you can give to this child such that they don't appear in court in uniform. Because when they appear in uniform and then the next day it is on TV, then they have to go back to school and explain to the rest of the people what they were doing in the court. So that is what it means to us, that we are improving on how we deal with our cases, we are improving on how we dispose of cases, and we are ensuring that the rights of Ugandans are protected above all.
You know, again, why is it critical to have special interventions, you know, to combat the SGBV, if you're to look at it in our justice system arrangement?
You know, the category of offenses I have talked about are not offenses that are committed in the open. With a case of shooting, somebody can go and shoot another in the public. But with an offense of defilement, it happens in a closed area, in hidden places. A case of rape, nobody will tell you that, you see, today I am going to rape my wife, and then they will go ahead and have eyewitnesses. So these categories of offenses usually don't have as many eyewitnesses as we may expect and as it may be for other offenses. If we have, but very limited. So you'll have a case scenario where you have the story of only the victim and then only the perpetrator. So because of the way the offenses are committed, it means that we have to do extra work in terms of looking for evidence, and we have to focus now on what is critical. Then also many of the victims, like I have mentioned, are largely children. And under the law, children's evidence has to be corroborated. So because of the legal challenges and because of the way the offenses are committed, it required us as responders and as justice actors to sit back to see how best can we focus now such that these cases are not lost in court simply because of lack of evidence. Now we have to focus on using forensic evidence to make sure that we have a concrete case and that this case can be proved in court. Unlike, civil cases, with criminal cases, the burden of proof is too high. We are expected to prove this case beyond reasonable doubt. So beyond reasonable doubt is difficult when you have a child that was defiled. Some of them cannot talk, some can express themselves. We have cases where we have victims who are as low as even months of 2 months, 8 months, 2 years, but they are victims and they need justice. So we need to focus on using forensic evidence. We need to also make sure that we have safe protection as they enter into the police or in the criminal justice system through police, as they come to our office as DPP, as we prepare them to go to court, and even when they are in court. So at police, Rose will talk about the interventions that police has done, but at ODPP we have child-friendly spaces where we conduct our interviews from. And then when we go to court, we also have special prayers that we make to court where children testify in camera. Those who don't have anything to do with this case are asked to go out, or we hear the cases in chambers. Then court has also come up with other interventions, audiovisual hearings, where a child testifies behind a screen, and then they are not seen in the general public, to avoid re-traumatization. And then we of recent had scenarios where we could not easily get our witnesses and we could get their evidence through Zoom. So Zoom hearings and then such safety measures ensure that this person is not limited in coming out to tell their story, because many people don't want to talk about sexuality things, especially in public, and criminal trials are usually had in public. So when you have in special interventions, it means that we'll have a full story of what happened, and it can guide court to make an appropriate decision on what actually happened. Then also, the offenses themselves come with a lot of stigma and shame. Yeah.
True, even during time of investigations.
Even during time of investigations, you're not just going to say, you see, I was raped last night. You will need a safe place where you can reveal such information, because if you mention it in public, everybody will begin looking at you,
and then the stigma kicks in at times.
Stigma kicks in at times. Then we also have some cases that are really extreme, where you'll have the impact is really harsh. In one of the cases I think I handled, an 8-year-old woman was raped and her pelvic bones were crushed because she had taken long, and she couldn't walk as a result of the offense of rape. So now for such, they need a special place where they are able to tell their story, and then the court is able to listen on and be able to offer the remedies that they need.
Okay,
Yeah.
and for my next question, I will start off with the Detective Senior Superintendent of Police, Rosa Simwe. When you look at the element of communication, cooperation, and of course collaboration among us, the justice, law and order sector institutions like the DPP, police, and of course looking at the probation details in there, or probation services, how critical is this in the fight against sexual gender-based violence?
Oh, thank you very much. Maybe briefly about me. I'm the head of Sexual and Children Offences Department at the Criminal Investigations Directorate in Uganda Police Force. We do investigate cases related to that, coordinate and supervise. So when it comes to areas of coordination and communication with other jealous actors, it's very, very key, because us as investigators, as police, we may not do all the investigations or conclude cases alone. We need the input of DPP, we need the input of courts, and we need the input of probation officers.
Yes.
Most of these cases that we handle, they involve children. And when we are handling these children, immediately we receive them, we involve the probation officers. One, to assess their welfare, and also to offer the psychosocial support that is needed. So we usually bring them on board to ensure that from day one, we work hand in hand with the probation officers so that they give in their assessments and they support in the psychosocial. Then also, in expeditious investigation of cases, we need these the jealous actors, especially DPP. We have embraced prosecution-led investigations. When a case is reported, we do case conferencing. We discuss it with the prosecutors to identify our positives and where we can do better, the strength, and we emphasize on those so that we can get successful investigations, but also quick investigations, not to avoid the back and forth movement in investigations, and also that is enhanced, of course, through collaboration and coordination. Then also getting feedback from the end users of our work. This is court. The moment we sit in one place with judiciary, with prosecutors and probation, and we get that feedback, we share from each other, it helps us to better our work. We get to know where we need to do better, where we need to improve, which better interventions we need to put in, because our ultimate is to get successful investigations.
True.
And therefore we get it from sharing with all these and coordinating with all our sister agencies and judicial and courts. Thank you.
Just so you know that a case is won at investigations.
Okay.
Yes.
Ms. Ross, Acha, looking at this particular issue of collaboration, how critical is it on your side, in your point of view as well?
Thank you. Sorry. Thank you very much. Of course, as my colleagues have spoken, when we are dealing with the cases of SGBV, one entity cannot handle it all. So we therefore have government actors, but also the non-state actors. So basically, the non-state actors usually complement the role of government, because it is the role of the state to protect its citizens. It's the role of the state to ensure that children's rights are upheld. But we work hand in hand with those other non-government actors to ensure that the role of the state is complemented while upholding the rights of these people. The other thing is that before we start these SGBV court sessions, we usually have capacity building sessions where we train, like for the case of the probation officers, they have a role to play, which I will mention later on. But before they start off, we usually hold joint trainings that involve the office of the DPP, jailers, ourselves, and even police. So we train these officers on how they are going to go about, especially in collection of the data that is needed in handling SGBV cases.
Okay.
Thank
And
you.
you've mentioned something to do with the role of the probation officers.
Yeah.
How impactful is their role? And also looking at what is their role and how do they support these victims and families that have actually been affected by SGBV?
So thank you once again. Maybe I will begin by telling the public who is a probation officer.
Sure.
So a probation officer is an officer, actually a civil servant, that is appointed mainly to ensure that children's rights are upheld, children's rights are protected at all levels. And here in Uganda, we have these officers across the country at district levels, municipality levels, cities, and also in the divisions. So being the people that are nearer to the community, definitely they are usually interacting with the communities, they are usually interacting with these victims and the families of these victims. So there is a critical role they have to play, especially when it comes to collection of the data that is needed in court. We have what we call the victim impact statements and community impact statements. So these are reports that the probation officers collect by visiting the homes or the families of these victims, visiting these victims in their families and interviewing them regarding the violence that they went through. So these interviews are done in a victim-friendly manner, in a way that does not cause more trauma to the victim, because as we all know, when somebody undergoes or experiences sexual gender-based violence, they become traumatized, they become fearful, they start to fear. So the probation officer ensures safety while they are interviewing this victim. In other words, this victim is isolated in a place where others may not be able to hear what she's saying, to give her an ample space to be able to express herself. But also in this victim impact statement, we are interested in knowing the magnitude of the impact of the violence on the victim. Many times violence happens and the victim experiences a lot of pain. It can be financially. For example, if the victim was defiled or raped, for example, they have to incur costs, maybe looking for medical, attention. They have to incur costs on legal services, which costs should not have happened had it not been for gender-based violence. So the probation officer in his interview has to capture all those details and write them in the report. We are also looking at the physical impact. Many times, because this act is forcefully done on an individual, there are sometimes some fights here and there, and in the process, the victim can sustain some injuries, and you can even see some scars on some victims as a result of sexual gender-based violence. Some victims have even lost their body parts because of this violence. Yes. So the probation officer has to capture all that and include in the victim impact assessment report. Now there is a difficult part that we have also to capture, the issues of the emotions. We can see a person moving, but we don't know what's inside the person. And it's worse for these people who have been victims of sexual gender-based violence. Because most of the perpetrators are usually people very close to them, people whom they loved so most, and who eventually did that act to them. Yes. So it becomes very emotionally painful for a victim to narrate their ordeal. So we capture that pain, and the only way we can be able to capture it is sitting down with the victim and interacting with them and asking them to speak what they are feeling inside themselves. So we capture that in the report. But also we look at the economic impact. You see, we can say before the violence happened, what was this woman doing? Did she have any source of income? Did she have any business that she was doing? So what has happened to the business as a result of sexual gender-based violence? Has she lost the business? And how are her people now surviving? What property of hers has been damaged? So all that the probation officer captures in their report. But also time. You see, we say time is money. The time the victim spends moving from hospital to hospital, moving from service point to service point, looking for services, that time, if it were not for sexual and gender-based violence, that victim would have used that time to perform some other productive activities to improve the welfare of their household. So alongside that preparation of the report, of course, eventually that report, once it's prepared, the probation officer submits it to the office of the DPP, which are also across the country, especially in the resident state attorney's office. That report, the resident state attorney eventually submits it to court, and it helps court while they are making their final decisions regarding the sentencing of the perpetrator. So alongside that, apart from the report, the probation officer also has to offer some services like psychosocial support. Okay. Because in the process of interviewing the victim, there's breakdown. You know, you recall the pain, and then there's breakdown. So the probation officer has to provide counseling and psychosocial support to restore that victim to be able to continue with the interview. But also referrals, because as we said, probation office works hand in hand with other stakeholders. So there are cases that need immediate referral to the other service providers. Could be police, could be to the medical facility for redress.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
And on the same matter that we are having our conversation this morning, you get to realize that this is sort of violence committed to a person because of his or her gender. Now, just to briefly break down for you some of the types of sexual gender-based violence that you can easily note and report to the nearby authorities. One may be rape, sexual assault, physical assault, forced marriage, denial of resources, opportunities, or even services. And then there is an element of psychological and emotional abuse, which normally happens in most of the marriages these days. So when you look at some of these particular cases, it's all about you opening up at times as well. But it's hard when you look at how the victims get to cover up most of this particular abuse that they face. When we do return after the break, we will be having more conversations rotating around the same. You're still watching UBC Good Morning Uganda Extra. Stick around.
Live from UBC Studios in Kampala, this is Good Morning Uganda Extra.
Junko.
Yo.
Check the shopping, man. What's your secret?
Haven't you heard of the Parish Development Model PDM?
Yes, I did, but I thought it was just a talk.
No, it is real. I and a few friends together formed a circle, accessed money from the PDM, invested in a poultry project, and now things are moving.
Junko, I thought I was one of your friends.
You are.
But you left me behind.
I didn't leave you in poverty. What you do, just visit your LC2 chairperson and your parish chief and start the process of economic transformation. Just like that. The Parish Development Model is an initiative from the government of Uganda through the Ministry of Local Government designed to transform all lives of Ugandans for the better. PDM, my parish, my development, my life.
(1970) Cuban internationalism. In 1970s, Cuba made a major effort to assume a leadership role in the world's non-alignment movement. The country established military advisory missions and economic and social reform programs. The 1976 World Conference of the Non-Aligned Movement applauded Cuba internationalism, which assisted the people of Angola in frustrating the expansionist and colonialist strategy of South Africa's racist regime and its allies. The next non-aligned conference was scheduled for Havana in 1979 to be chaired by Fidel Castro, with his becoming the de facto spokesperson for the movement. The conference in September 1979 marked the zenith Cuban prestige. Most but not all attendees believed that Cuba was not aligned with the Soviet camp in the Cold War. (1950s) and early 1960s non-aligned movement. The countries of the non-aligned movement represent nearly 2/3 of the United Nations members and contain 55% of the world's population. Membership is particularly concentrated in countries considered to be developing countries, although the non-aligned movement also has a number of developed countries gained the most traction in 1950s and early 1960s when the international policy of non-alignment achieved major success in decolonization disarmament. Live from UBC Studios in Kampala, this is Good Morning Uganda Extra.
We'll be back from the break, and our conversations around the analysis of good practices in disposal of sexual gender-based violence cases in Uganda continues. I'm still with my three guests this morning, and our conversations are definitely to open up and create awareness, as well as giving a space to victims of sexual gender-based violence and those who are affected in the long run to ideally understand how they can actually report these cases, and then to the society and different communities where we come from, how can we put an end to the same? Because by the look of things, every day the cases are growing. And while into the break here, I've also been reminded that trafficking of persons is also part of that. That is by Miss Samali Wakoli. She has actually reminded me that trafficking of persons is also part of sexual gender-based violence. Then there is also an element of the cyber violence that is also on the rise lately, simply because of the usage of social media platforms, where people use such platforms to portray lots of things on those particular platforms, which at times end up traumatizing and mentally damaging victims in one way or the other. But our conversations do continue now, and I'm taking this next question to the Detective Senior Superintendent of Police, that is Rose Asimwe. Rose, when you look at the cases or the issue to do with sexual gender-based violence, what special interventions has the Directorate of Criminal Investigations, put in place for these particular victims?
Thank you very much. The Directorate of Criminal Investigations has put a lot of interventions. Currently, we are doing a lot of re-equipping and retooling of our police officers, mainly to enhance their capacity in managing these cases of SGBV. We have created SGBV desks at every police station across the whole country, and this is mainly to enhance quick response to these cases and also for professionalism while handling them. So any person can walk into the station and he will be received, as long as it's a case of SGBV, he will be received by that department, that desk, and they will listen and handle their matters professionally, with high level of integrity and confidentiality, and also putting in consideration the sensitivity that we attach to those cases. While handling these cases at stations, we ensure that when a female victim is with us, we ensure that we attach female police officers to them.
Okay.
While going for examinations, medical examinations, we ensure that they are escorted by female police officers. And also during the investigations, when we need to move to the field and back, we ensure that they are well in the hands of the female police officers. Then also we have shelters. We have a shelter at CID headquarters, which is one of the best. It is mainly to support our vulnerable victims who face this violence. Whenever it happens, most of these victims who have nowhere to go, probably they've been abused by their close people, close relatives, and they have nowhere to run to for shelter at that time. We usually receive them in Chibuli, and we ensure that their welfare is well catered for. It is a decent accommodation. We no longer allow our victims to sleep in stations at counters. So we usually receive them and ensure that they are safe in our hands. We cater for whatever that is required. And also we coordinate with other sister organs, especially NGOs, also for referral in case we may not offer all the services at the same shelter. We have children-friendly spaces at CID headquarters and also in other stations. We have them. Children, you cannot intervene in children matters when you just sit with them in that office and in that space where so many people are. So we have that safe space for them where they can feel free and express their concerns and talk to us, and we interview them, and it has helped us, especially when we are handling their cases. And also in other stations, it's there and it is being rolled out. Then we have interview rooms. With the sensitivity that we attach to these cases, we do not interview our victims or witnesses in line with these cases of SGBV in an open space, nor at counter. The moment you walk into the counter and we identify that it is an SGB offense or it's a defilement or rape, we understand it and we take you to a private space where we can interview you and with enough confidentiality so that you can open up to us and not to expose you, and also to reduce on the stigma and traumatization. Then also we have interpreters. We realized it is something that was usually we would get challenges, especially when we get the challenged victims. So we have them, and they usually move around the whole country where we have most of these cases where they are involved, and they help us to interpret and in recording statements for these victims. Then we have medical facilities. It has been a challenge, but we are getting there. At most of our police stations now we have police clinics with police medical officers, and they are helping us in examination. We usually do training, joint trainings with them so that they appreciate what we need to look out when we are examining these victims of SGBV. So they are at most of our police stations. We have their clinics and health centers. They are also open to the public, but mainly to target our victims so that they can access quick and medical services. And not only do we mind about the investigations alone, we mind about the health of these people. So whenever we get most of them, we ensure we assess the risk at hand first. If it needs medical, we first rush in for medical. So that someone gets treatment, then we can come back and sit and do our interviews and investigations. Someone needs PEP, emergency treatment, especially PEP, contraceptives. So it is something that we have taken up, especially while handling all these cases of SGBV, to ensure that people get them so that their lives are safe, and then we can proceed with those investigations. But also where our police clinics are not, we make use of public hospitals and facilities, and we ensure that our victims can get there and be examined on our police forms, and also get quick treatment for them.
Okay.
Then we we also have put in place toll-free lines to ensure that people can report.
Which you can gladly share with us.
Yes, we have 0200 420207. That is at CID headquarters. And then we have 0800 199 195. Officers are always on those lines. Whenever you call in and you have a concern, you have a case to report, we shall gladly receive your concern and your report, and we shall handle it in the most professional way that it deserves.
Okay, let me get back to the Assistant Director of Public Prosecutions. I need to understand, or the viewers would gladly want to understand, what are the case management best practices that you've put in place as the Office of the Director of Public Prosecutions of Uganda, together with the police, in order to address these same issues, and also in order to dispose of the SGBV cases in the country?
In line with our mandate, recently we launched what we call prosecutor-guided investigation guidelines. Okay. So before, we would just leave the police do the investigations, and then we handle the cases later. But we have realized that when a prosecutor is involved in these cases right away from the reporting time, we are sure of good quality evidence. So we have been now working closely with Rose and the team, and we make sure that we are available from the earliest opportunity, because at the end of the day, it's the prosecutors that present this evidence in court. So when I work with detectives and we follow the evidence, we own up to the result, all of us. And at the end of the day, the success is to the whole team. So we are keen at participating in investigations, gathering of evidence, preservation of the evidence. We have also realized that because of the way these offenses are committed, forensic evidence is very key, like I mentioned. So it's important that we have our forensic officers knowledgeable about what we need and how the evidence is collected, the scene of crime officers, what evidence to collect, how is it collected, how is it preserved, and how is it presented to the lab for analysis. I'll give you a clear example where we had a case and we cannot identify the perpetrator because the child was very young, and the perpetrator totally denied that for him he has never touched that girl. But when we took the samples of the girl's panties to the lab, the report came out with his DNA in the victim's panties. So that clearly shows you how science can easily place my perpetrator at the scene of crime. So we are also focusing on how we can leverage on scientific evidence to make sure that we handle cases quickly. Apart from that, as the Office of DPP, we appreciate the critical aspects that come with this case. So the director established the department that I head of gender, children and sexual offenses. And this department has specifically trained attorneys in issues of trauma. You earlier mentioned the issues of emotions, patient. Not everybody, by the way, can handle these categories of offenses. You require a lot of skill and time. So the prosecutors who are there, we also have officers in the field who are specifically trained in handling these categories of cases, and it helps us to interview and be able to prepare our witnesses in time. But apart from that, Afande Rose didn't mention it, we started the communication right away from the gate of the justice system, which is the police. So at police we have gender focal persons. Those are the people she mentioned, that when the victim now arrives at the police station and you are talking about an offense that falls in this category, you will go to the gender focal person. That gender focal person will then work on the file and forward it to our department. And then also court, the principal judge gave us also a judge who is a focal person in line of handling these cases, so we can work together as a team and coordinate. In the Ministry of Gender, we have Rose Acha and the team of probation officers who are also supporting the prosecution office to ensure that we handle these cases in a victim-friendly manner and ensure that the cases are concluded. We cannot rule out, of course, the fact that we have challenges and complaints may come in along the way with the way the cases are handled. I want to assure the public that as the Office of DPP, we are committed to ensuring that we handle these cases well. And if anybody is unhappy probably about the way the cases are being handled, the director has put up a complaints management system which is housed in her own office. So we have our state attorneys at the district. You can approach any of our resident state attorney and you tell them how the police have not helped you, and we can direct them to do that work. Or if you feel the resident state attorney has not helped, you can come to the regional office. We have 19 regional offices headed by assistant directors of public prosecutions who can also support that victim, address any investigation gaps. And if at the region also probably somebody feels that they have not been helped, then they can come to the DPP's office where we have a fully fledged unit that handles complaints. And also we have open emails where people can write complaints and then we can receive them and then attend to them.
You know, on that point of open emails, I wish to also understand, how are you using the digital technology and innovations that we are having, you know, to leverage the disposal of sexual gender-based violence cases in Uganda?
You know, with the coming of COVID, of course, we lost our loved ones. True. But it also taught us a lot of things that we have copied and that have been very helpful. Right now, with technology, we have been handling cases in court via Zoom.
Okay.
So in the last session that we handled, I think we had one of our witnesses who was in Rwanda and could not come. But we connected via Zoom and were able to receive the evidence, and the person was able to narrate what happened. Also, the open court system, many people fear court. And I think even you, Mr. Sonko, if I told you today we are going to court as a witness, you'll get scared.
A bit.
Yeah, a bit. So most people tend to fear court, but court is not a very harsh environment. The people who work in the courts are human beings like the rest of us. The judges are very friendly. The magistrates are very friendly.
No, I think it's because of the terminologies at times that are being used. That is why most people fear coming into, because at times they think maybe the evidence you may give may be used against you.
No. Because in the court we speak in the language of your witness. So you will speak your Uganda, then we will have an interpreter who will interpret in the English. So you don't have to be scared that you see, I must speak in English. Besides that, we are talking about things that were there. That happened, so there is no magic about it. So you only need to avail yourself and then you come. So you don't have to fear the court. So because of the general fear that people have in court, we courts have come up with such interventions. Then I also earlier mentioned where witnesses testify across the screen. We have a TV, so in the courtroom it has been wired with the system where you only see the screen and the witness, but the victim does not come to the open courtroom to see the abuser and to see maybe people who may easily compromise them. We also have other measures that our court has put in where we move them to a separate room where they will provide the evidence and then they don't go to mix in the courtrooms. So such instances have helped to ease the tension of witnesses. So if the witness tells you, I am unable to speak, or I can't face that person again, that is what we will do to ensure that the person is safe, and courts have also been very good to us, that they would accept any prayers, and also as long as the rights of the accused persons have not been violated, because they also have an opportunity to cross-examine this witness.
Okay, let me get to Ms. Rose Acha now. When you look at children who are victims of SGBV, do you have any special interventions that have been put in place for these particular children?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Sonko. Truly, we have interventions that are in place at different levels to cater for these child victims. But for my sake, I'm going to talk about the interventions that fall under the Ministry of Gender, Labour and Social Development.
Okay.
Earlier on, I mentioned about the probation officers, whom I said are all over the country. So these officers are trained to handle children. So it means they can speak the language that is child-friendly to be able to help these victims, including accompanying them to court. Sometimes a child victim can go to court and he fears even to speak a word. But with the presence of the probation officer, and because they have been used to him or her previously in the community, the child can open up and speak that is the information that is needed, that he or she has been hiding. So the probation officers guide these children even during the court sessions. But also, as a ministry, we have set up a toll-free line that is commonly called Sauti 116. And this line is used for reporting cases of not only SGBV, but generally cases of gender-based violence, and also cases of violence against children.
Okay.
So any member of the public can call that line and report in any language that they are comfortable with. We have counselors that speak almost all the languages in Uganda. They can be able to attend to them.
Okay, I want this other question to go to all of you here. Looking at the collaborations and partnerships away from, you know, the offices or departments under JELOS, or institutions under JELOS, by the look of things, do we have other non-state actors who have been very pivotal in the fight against sexual gender-based violence? And how important and critical have these partnerships been? Any?
Okay, I can start off. Yes. One of them is UNFPA.
Okay.
They have funded this program from right away from 2018 up to today, and they have supported all of us to make sure that we handle these cases effectively. And to that we thank them so much. Then also the media. The media is very, very critical, and we cannot underestimate the role that the media plays. They receive these reports and bring them to our offices. Some of them we may not be aware of, but you'll find, because you people deal with the community, you may receive information, and once you forward it to us, we follow it up and ensure that the case has been properly investigated and then concluded. We have NGOs that are our friends that we have been working with. As government, we can't say that we can provide everything that we need, but we have the shelter at CID, but then also we have other spaces where we can accommodate who can keep for us. We have been working with the Willow, we have been working with the which are there are several, by the way, that you there is Champisi Ministries. We have also been working with Uganet. We have been working with Mufumi. We've been working with Action Aid. They are so helpful. So when you call them and say, I have a child, and this child was defiled by the father, and probably the mother is protecting the father.
Okay.
Can you keep them for me for 2 days or so as we sort it out? And they are always willing to help.
Okay. Looking at that, I will be getting back to all of you, but I'll start with Ms. Rose Archer. In your parting shots, I would wish to for you to give us, where do you think the fight against sexual gender-based violence is heading? Are we on the right path? What do we need to do as we're winding up with our conversation this morning?
Thank you so much. I believe we are on the right path. So far, we are holding these sessions in a few selected districts. So my wish is that we in future be able to roll out a project across the entire country, because even these other districts that are not part of the project have cases that need to be handled. So that is what I can say for now.
Okay. Now I head to the Detective Senior Superintendent of Police, Rose Asimu. What would be your parting shots? And in regards to the fight against sexual gender-based violence, what do you think should be the way forward? One, to the community, the authorities, and the country as well.
Thank you very much. One, to the community, I would request that we take it upon ourselves as communities to always report cases of gender-based violence. When you keep quiet on violence, then you are not doing much to end it. So let's take it up on each and every person, that any person violated, you should take it up so that authorities get to know and it is investigated. Then to the other agencies, I pray for continued support and collaboration so that we ensure that our public and communities get the justice they deserve. And from our directorate as CID, we do pledge for total and high integrity and professional investigations and the services that we shall offer. Maybe something that I need to mention is whenever cases are reported, if you have any concern about any case, there is an OCCID at a police station. So if you feel the detective who is handling the matter is not handling well, you can approach the OCCID. Then there are regional CIDs who are also there to ensure they supervise at all regions, so you can also always run to their offices for any support. In the event that all those have not helped, CID headquarters is open. And we are committed to giving people the best services. We have a customer care desk at CID headquarters that receives all complaints, and it's directly under the director of CID's office, and they are always on 24 hours to receive all your complaints and the rest. Maybe finally, to thank also UNFPA for the support that they have given to the Criminal Investigation Directorate in terms of capacity building. They've supported most of our trainings to ensure that we have professional detectives, and also facilitating in conclusion of cases. We have had case backlog clearance because of their support, and also creating mass awareness. It has been key. We cannot fight this SGBV when masses are not aware. They need to appreciate the impact that it creates so that they can also devote themselves to ending the same violence. And I pray for commitment. Support police and we shall support you. Please always speak out so that you can get the justice. Don't keep quiet on any injustice, any form of injustice that is related to SGBV.
And the catchword there is speaking out, so we can end this together. Lastly, to Ms. Samali Wankoli, what would be your parting shot? And that is in regards to the fight against sexual gender-based violence.
All right. It is holiday time. Children are back at home. Dear parents, look after your children. Don't allow your 5-year-old child to go to the shop in the night at 8 p.m. to buy salt, to buy soap. Look out for what is missing and buy it early. Don't leave children to walk around on the village unattended to and supervised. That is how they will be abused at the end of the day. Please take care of your children. Don't allow teenagers to go for house parties, because now what is happening incidentally is during the house parties, children are now engaging in drug-related things. They drink intoxicated drinks, and at the end of the day, they don't know what is happening to them. A child that came for a holiday when they are okay in the month of December from school, we want them to go back to school come January or February. We don't want young pregnancies. We don't want to have young children giving birth to children. We want to live in a community where a child should go to school and live a comfortable life. And when we talk about gender-based violence, some people think that it is only happening to people who are poor. No. Even those who are rich are also suffering from this vice. We would encourage you to come out and report. And to the community, please, when this incident happens, please don't laugh at people, don't stigmatize them, don't share videos to everybody like as though it is a funny thing. Because to many, once that happens, they would rather now die with their pain than coming out to speak about it. So instead of laughing or instead of making fun about it, offer them the necessary support, escort them to the police officer, escort them to the probation officer, escort them to our office, and we'll be able to handle that case and prosecute it to logical conclusion. As I close, we are having sessions now in the districts of Mukono, we are having district of Gulu, and then in Kamwenge. I want to call upon all our witnesses who reported their cases, please report to our resident state attorneys in those offices and find out if your case has been fixed for hearing. And if it has, please help us and we get all the other witnesses such that they testify, and then we are able to keep away the wrong people from the communities. I want to share our toll-free numbers that you can reach the Office of the Director of Public Prosecutions, which is at 0800112300, and any complaint can be reached at admin@dpp.go.ug. Anything channeled around there will be able to help you. We are thankful that you could give us your time, and I wish you all a Merry Christmas.
Well, indeed, and our time is done, and so are we here. But of course, just to quickly remind you, our topic of conversation this morning has been around analysis of good practices in disposal of sexual gender-based violence cases in Uganda. My guests this morning have been having Samali Wakoli, who is the Assistant Director of Public Prosecutions and also Head of Department, Gender, Children and Sexual Offences in the Office of the Director of Public Prosecutions of Uganda, or the DPP. Many thanks for joining us, ma'am. And then also at the farthest from my left has been Rose Archer. She serves as the Senior Probation and Welfare Officer, Ministry of Gender, Labour and Social Development. She has as well been here giving us more of our discussions. And then lastly, we've been joined by the Detective Senior Superintendent of Police, Rose Asimwe, who has also been here giving us her view from that side of the law, that is the police, in regards to the fight against sexual gender-based violence. It's a fight we can take on as a whole. I am Joram Paul Sonko. Happy Thursday from me to you, and many thanks for all of you who joined us from the time we kicked off 6:30 a.m. now till tomorrow. This has been Good Morning Uganda Extra. Have yourselves a lovely day.